in one appointment?
Yep, and I can send it to you if you need it, but if you have it, then just go ahead.
I think I've got it. Just.
No, sister.
It's so good to be here with you too. I can't believe it feels like it's been a long time in the human timeline before it got here, but we're here.
Yeah, a lot happens after you make plans, and I wanted to say to the viewers who are out there, this is a really magical woman that we're going to have a conversation with. We're all in for a treat, just a meeting of the minds. And I want to ask you a little bit about what you're passionate about right now, what's really coming through in your own work with people in your passion projects, and what's the transpersonal experience you're seeing that's just, we can all relate to.
Yeah, so, well, first I just want to say thanks so much. And I think second of all, I guess, how did I really get here is like a question of why love is important and emotions and empowerment. I was born to two parents who were lawyers, very black and white thinking, and they were gifted this colorful child they did not know what to really do with. But it was such a gift for them and their transitions, and it was such a gift for me. I feel like it is always a co-created and chosen experience. But I ended up getting cancer at age 14 on my throat because I stopped speaking my truth, and I was told not to speak it, or I would get like really good grades, or like the exams would be great, but it just, I wouldn't say why I was doing it, or like the other worlds and dimensions that I would see. And so I just suppressed a lot of myself for a really, really, really long time. And it wasn't until the moment that I was in a corporate job. I worked for a $23 billion company covering $8 million territory at 23. And I was like, you know what, I've got to change my life. Like something has to change. And I just left and moved across the world to New Zealand, where I didn't know anyone. I didn't know anything. I got a new job. It's like, I think if I just switch my location maybe and do the same thing, things will change. And so I started working for a $400 million company, doing marketing campaigns for Korea, Taiwan, Japan, Australia, New Zealand. And I slowly realized you cannot change your environment and pick up and move somewhere and just expect things to change. And that was really a huge part of my journey, looking within and starting to see there's a whole other world available that we can connect to and we can create from. And that was in November of 2017. And then the first time I remembered there was a soul and a body was in April of 2018. And so what I've created, I guess, in the past 2.5 years has been and guided people through. It's been incredible. But what I've really seen in the field lately is people want to understand how to tap into this creative power, like how to tap into this magic that everyone thinks Colleen has just swallowed a pill and magically it keeps exploring and expanding. And a lot of my clients, I feel like they have numbed themselves to the point of either being in relationships where they're not allowing their heart to break so they can grow, or they're dwelling in heartbreak. And that's like recreating depression and anxiety and like, what do I do? How do I make money? And it's creating the wrong questions to be asked, which is then generating a life they really don't want to be receiving or perceiving. So that's how I got here.
What it sounds to me like is you had the transpersonal experience that we all have, which is an emotionally unintelligent society, raising kids who have a lot to express but don't have the skills, having blockages and creating toxicity within their field, sometimes showing up as physical and sometimes showing up as behavioral, in a job that satisfies the status quo but doesn't satisfy you, and eventually going on your own spiritual journey to find that you take yourself everywhere with you. And there you are everywhere you go, and then doing inner work to evolve the way you relate to yourself, and probably fueled by an obvious physical expression of the toxicity inside your body. And you're seeing now through your work that people are either avoiding their feelings or they're dwelling in their feelings, and it's causing disruption in their relationships, because I'm either I don't want to get hurt, or I'm in my hurt right now that I'm creating these stories, and I'm looking for coping mechanisms to try and get out of that. And I think that what we're seeing is two of the same things here. We're seeing somebody who's afraid of their feelings, they're afraid of getting hurt and heartbroken and putting themselves out there and really trying. Or there's an individual who is feeling heartbroken and trying to find a way to get away from it. who's trying to find a way to heal, to feel better, and they're looking for ways in their life to avoid those challenging feelings.
Correct. Yeah, that's a really good way to sum it up. And I feel with you, like I'd love for you to share a little bit about what you're seeing and who you are, how this came to be, and everything with that.
Cool. Yeah, I think it's very similar to yours, as many of us will, if we can extract back high enough and look at it kind of with a little softer vision. We can see that it's a shared experience. The general theme was very, very similar, although the particulars are different. I was born into the society that you were, where we didn't have emotional intelligence skills. And so the disruption in my family life eventually led me to solitary confinement as a boy, 14 years old, inside of a box with no human contact for months, no windows, nobody coming in. You just drop off a tray of food and open the door, mop it with this piss stink bleach mop, and then go back out again. And I cried and I cried, and I really wanted to connect with people, and I just felt so much pain in there. And I remember one day standing on the concrete slab, there was a plexiglass window that was hazed over. You couldn't see through it, but you could see there was a gate on the other side. And there was a scratch along it. I think a boy had a paper clip and from his court papers and had scratched across it, many boys. And at the apex of that, in the very center, the apex of their movement, they had made a very tiny pinhole. And I was standing on my tippy toes. Imagine a little boy. I was standing on my tippy toes, and I found that little hole. And I'm like, I can see black, white. And I was like, there's a leaf out there. And I could feel the cold air coming in and hitting my eye. And I put my nose up, and I'm smelling the air outside. And I just realized what was happening. And I dropped down to my knees, and I was crying, and I was just like, I can't believe that I'm trying to breathe fresh air out of a pinhole in a concrete box. And I was screaming, and I was screaming, freedom, freedom, freedom. And I was raging out. And then I just went, I'm not going to cry anymore. And I turned off my emotions. I turned them off. And I just stopped feeling. I was a very emotionally expressive boy. I came from a very emotionally expressive household, a lot of very sensitive people, and living in one place, it was very volatile. And in that moment, I brought myself to spiritual bypassing at its best. And I went right into, I don't feel anything. And I'm a bodhisattva now. And I've risen above this. And I sat in that space, and I was super peaceful. And I did the rest of my time in there with grace, and I moved on, and I had many other adventures since then. But what that did was it stopped me from feeling. And as I grew in relationships, I didn't really know love. I didn't really know pure joy and gratitude. I knew the basic animal biological responses, which was the limbic system responses of hormonal releases associated with like fear or anger or palpable sensations and maybe sadness and loneliness, because the animal is having its own biological responses, but the higher vibrational frequencies of love and gratitude and joy were not accessible to me. And so in my relationships, I could leave people in a heartbeat. We were together for a year or two, and then you did something I didn't like, and it's like, get out, and just like, you're not my friend anymore, you know? And it's just like super easy. I go to a funeral and have to pretend cry. I remember licking my finger and making fake tears at a funeral because I knew I was supposed to be crying, and I knew I missed that person. And I was sad that they died, but I couldn't really get the tears to fall, and I felt very self-conscious about that. And over the years, I've been doing my work, and I realized after I unlocked my own emotions through allowing the blocked pain and sadness to come through, all of the floodgates opened up from all the feelings I didn't feel, and the pendulum swings. And so because I was able to go into the depths of the emotional throes and the challenging emotions, I was able to go into the high highs. I was really able to feel the elation of true connection, the spiritual connection to people with love and unconditional love, just loving you just to love you because it feels so amazing inside. And not because I want something from you, but feeling that transpersonal cosmic love with as many people as would share with me. And even if you didn't, I could just feel it for you. And that really changed my life. I started to be able to have a wider spectrum of emotion, the full, and then a greater bandwidth as well. So I could handle higher intensities of emotions. And that allowed me to do many other kinds of rituals around emotion and feelings that help me access my feelings more. And what I've learned since then is that we transpersonally, all across the board, pretty much, I'd say 90% of society is not feeling. It's not feeling, they're thinking their emotions, and they're avoiding challenging feelings. And so I think that when you talked about earlier, what you're seeing right now is people playing out, and then they're unable to create the relationships that they want in their life, because they're afraid of being rejected, or they are having already a rejection and they're wallowing in that. And then they're looking for ways to get out of it. Is what we're all doing is emotionally unintelligent. We're avoiding challenging feelings.
Yeah.
So,
I was gonna say, first of all, I love that it was age 14 for us. That is bizarre. I never knew that. But I think, well, it's not bizarre, but it's a beautiful story. But I also feel with manifestation or with business, when I look at my life, why I set that out or why I wanted to go in that space is like, I want to make the most amount of money. I want to make sure I always have it. So if the cancer comes back, I'm never going to have to worry about money. Because when I was doing chemotherapy, there was a little girl and her dad walked in. And what he said to his wife is he said, the only reason we can't pay for our daughter's treatment is because you're a stay-at-home mom. And so I didn't know it at a very young age, but that imprinted in my mind that you needed money to have love and money to not die. And I went very hard at this belief subconsciously till I was about 23 when I moved to New Zealand, and I had all this programming to undo. And it's funny because I feel like now with my business, Colleen Gallagher International, and a few other businesses that I have, I don't work anywhere near as hard and the results are so much greater and my relationships are better and the people that I communicate with are more exciting. However, it's because I allowed myself to tap into the intensity of those feelings we don't want to feel. Like, okay, I'm really feeling like I don't want to be rejected, or I'm really feeling nervous. And I feel like as women, we've been taught for so long that men don't like that, don't feel that, don't do this. You have to have a reason for your emotions. And there's like all these things that come with it. Instead of just allowing yourself to go, right now I'm really annoyed, right now I'm feeling really sad, right now I'm feeling really angry. I'm going to feel the feeling. I'm not going to blame it on anyone. I'm not going to do whatever, but I'm going to allow that to somehow come through and out of me. And from that process of like throughness, I don't know how to describe it more than that, but with that, you create and you offer and you project and perceive things in a different reality, which creates results you didn't even really set out to get, because you couldn't have imagined it without it literally coming through you in this divinely beautiful expression. And I feel when I speak with people or even clients or friends, especially in relationships that maybe they're not happy in, or relationships that they're wanting to evolve through, there's this thing of, I know that I don't like my partner does this, or I know that I don't like this, I know that I'm not happy, or there's a settling happening, but I don't want to feel it, I don't want to communicate it, so I'm going to pretend it's not there, put it in a box, go over here and just do this robotic, chaotic like thing. And I feel like there's always a moment of initiation. There's always a moment when it gets like, ow, my hand is on the fire, ow, and there gets a point when it's too much. And the only way I feel like when I look at my life, I accelerated that ow, and there's always new lessons to be revealed or expansions, is when I put myself in new environments, when I build the courage to go, I'm going to reach out to that person or ask that person or say the thing and not be worried how I might sound dumb, or I might say like, I've never said this to anyone before, but I feel like I need to say this to you, so I'm just going to put it out and like start that conversation. And when you start to make that a practice in your life, it then becomes a habit, which then creates this beautiful just expression around you.
It sounds to me like what you're talking about is, you've talked about women. I think guys are doing the same thing. So when we're in a relationship with somebody and we're not speaking our truths, it's the same as having approach anxiety and not being able to tell that individual that you really love them, and having self-consciousness, is that we've got energy inside of us that wants to be expressed, ideas, feelings, things, that parts of us that are our truth that we don't express. Why do we do it in our relationships? Codependency. We need that person so much that we don't want to rock the boat. In addition to that, it's emotional unintelligence. I don't know how to deal with your feelings. And so if I tell you my truth, it's going to create all this chaos that I can't deal with. 70% of all relationships fail because of an inability to handle challenging emotional vibrational frequencies. I don't know what to do with your feelings. I don't know what to do with mine. So I'd rather avoid. And in that avoidance, it also happens when you are trying to make new relationships. I feel so much yuck and nervousness and anxiety. And I go, hey, hi, Colleen, how are you? So you do Facebook Lives often? Like, I try to put on a show for you that I'm fine because I'm trying to push that emotion down, which is the same thing that the people are doing in their relationships, causing a disconnect from their partner. And that oppression of emotion is using a lot of mental bandwidth. We are putting so much of our consciousness tethered to trying to oppress a feeling that's really there and avoid it. And it creates a disruption in our own energetic field. I can't actually be present with you and allow our energy to flow in this moment and create an exchange back and forth if so much of my mind is tethered to not feeling something that is there and not expressing my truth into the moment. And what most people, if they can learn to move their energy through them to express and feel and honestly express their internal landscape into their relationships and into the present moment, they will create a deeper connection with themselves and their truth that allows them the clarity you're talking about to understand why they were having the feelings in the first place and how to move forward in a good way. And they relate to themselves more beautifully. And you talked about moving to New Zealand or somewhere else, like maybe it was New Zealand, having taken yourself with you. The relationship with you is the only relationship that you're going to have until you die. I mean, there's a possibility that you'll have a soulmate that you live with until you both pass away, but more than likely, the soul relationship that you'll have is I. And so it's important that we don't compromise our connection to our emotions and our authenticity of expressing what we need and desire, our boundaries, who we really are. Show our nervousness, show your yuck, and destroy this potential connection with a stranger at the benefit of knowing who you are. And destroy this relationship with this individual that is actually codependent and stopping you from really thriving as a woman or a man, at the benefit of coming out like a phoenix and finding the next iteration of who you are, being connected with yourself and not carrying with you that baggage of that old coping mechanism that really doesn't work.
Correct. And I feel like there's something too for some people that are listening, maybe listening to this, like, I have no idea how to even start. Like, I don't know, like, what I'm even feeling. Like, I'm hearing you guys, but I have no idea. And I can remember an experience, this was recently, probably maybe a year and a half ago. And I remember that I messaged someone, I was like, I just do not feel safe in this. Like, it was a mentor relationship. And I was like, I don't feel safe in it anymore. I've like, whatever it was. And I didn't know why though. Like, I physically couldn't put feelings or words to what I was feeling. But I knew that I needed to like get out, like just leave. And there was like no conversation needed. And I remember there's more times in my life, like when I started my PhD, there was something that was like, that PhD was not right. And I knew I needed to switch it. And there was just these feelings, but I didn't know why. But my analytical mind, because I was raised, so I always wanted to know why. Like, why am I feeling this feeling? And I started something called Neurofeedback Therapy. I don't know if you've ever heard of it, but for those of you listening, it's basically like you hook your brain up and there's these like neurons or like these frequencies that they put on your brain based on where there may have been trauma, based on where your brain is underactive or overactive. And it studies it. And then you put frequency like in your ears to basically level your brain out. And so this was a huge like thing in my life. And from this, I started to question, when was the first time I left my body? And I remembered when I was 3 years old, my mom was at a grocery store and I grabbed for pasta sauce by accident and she pulled my arm so hard it dislocated my shoulder. And that was the first time that I left my body. And I created then a habit in my life of leaving my body, leaving my body, leaving my body. And I couldn't feel these feelings. And so one thing that I did that was an actual like tactical step of something in my life that assisted me was this neurofeedback therapy. So if you're someone who like suffers from anxiety or depression, this can go through meditation, you can go through just feeling it, but there is a science also to it that you can go through to allow yourself to release what's been imprinted into you.
I think that there's stuff we can do without having technology too. I think it's great that you found that, but I want to give people some tools so they can rewire their programming in their brain without that. So what's going on is we have electrical activity in the neurons that is creating a certain pathway of information. And there's subconscious, which is like telling you how you should behave. In a challenging situation, I disassociate. So when you're talking about leaving your body, oftentimes it's people who are not even feeling anymore, they're shutting down or they're disassociating from themselves. It could be you're abandoning yourself in relationships by not speaking your truth. Maybe you have emotions coming up saying, I need to leave this relationship, but I ignore that. That's an abandonment of self. That's leaving your body. It's like, I can feel it, but I ignore it. And I just keep going. So in these instances, this is a subconscious program playing out. We all have a default. So the default program that runs on us is usually come from our past experiences and our training. So our family lineage, from social media, from psyop agendas, from corporate psychology that's trying to sell us stuff, from religious dogma, from myopic academias, from just the status quo, what's the ancient lineage of our family, how we just have done things. And that teaches our brain how we should automatically respond to challenging situations. And your thought patterns, if you're not paying attention to them, they all have, it has a loop, it has a theme. Yes. And in the theme of abandoning ourselves, that's happening because of the pathway the neurons have arranged themselves to. The very structure of the neurology adjusts how information travels. And to put it simply, if we had a piping system and they all went in different directions, if I poured water in the top, it would choose the pipe with the fattest pathway that was straight. It wouldn't go to the skinny pathway that had a lot of bends in it. And so in our brain, the neurons become very hardwired and straight pathway right to our default. So if I shut down, I'm nervous, or I'm always get angry and attack, that area of the brain gets a lot of nerves. So without me even trying, I immediately leave my body without even, it just happens. And so we can rewire that through allowing ourselves to feel the thing that behavior pattern is trying to avoid. So whatever my coping mechanism is, if it's like, it's just leaving it, pretending like it's not there, taking breaths and trying to come back to peace, exercising, masturbating, scrolling, snorting, drinking, smoking, you know, whatever you do to try to feel better is an avoidant tactic. It's trying not to feel something really challenging. And so what we want to do is remember that my old default way of dealing with things is not allowing the energy to actually flow. And I need to go into feeling the thing that I'm afraid of. And after doing it, it's kind of counterintuitive because you think, oh, I'm going to feed that. That thing is there whether you feed it or not. It's going to be compressed into your being, into the quantum layer of the molecules that make up the matter of your body and adjust the vibrational frequency so that you resonate at the frequency that of what you're trying to avoid. And you send that out to the field and your neurons continue to fire in accordance with that vibrational frequency. And so you experience a repeating pattern of that thing in your life. And so I think the way that we can adjust this is by allowing ourselves to feel the thing that we have not wanted to feel for so long and move that. After we've done that essential step of caring for the emotions, we go into tailoring our thought patterns. We need to tailor what we think, because the funny thing is we believe what we think, and you can choose what you think. And the more often we think something and feel something, the neurons start to adjust their pattern, and that structural shift enacts a functional shift so that the wavelengths in your brain and the areas that light up start to change because there's new energy and new information and new behavior. And over time, they become the new information pathways. So instead of using science, which is beautiful, we have all the tools within us already. We just need to put a little bit of energy and awareness into what our old patterns are, allow the energy to move through us somatically, and then begin a repatterning in our own lives through our thoughts and actions.
Correct. And this is something that I started with. And then like when I went deeper into some of these things, I wanted to understand and know the science, but I totally agree with Lion. You can do this on your own. Like I remember the first time I allowed myself to feel heartbreak. And I remember it was like a year and a half after the first time my heart had ever been broken. And I remember like just sitting there and like crying, but it was like this beautiful thing. Like, I don't even know how to describe it to most people, but the more that we try to do things, like Lion said, even if it's working out, even if it's yoga, even if it's breath, that can be an avoidance tactic because you're still doing something to not feel. And the avoidance or judgment of any feeling is, again, hindering it from being felt. And then from that space of once you feel it, like Lion's talked about, I like to call it the thought cloud, the iCloud, the infinite cloud that we can all get data from or access thoughts from. And so like one thing Lion said a lot, and I used to really have this in my branding a lot, was freedom. When he was there, he's like, freedom, freedom. One thing that I feel like when I was first starting this, I said that all the time. I even now expand that to like, I have freedom. I want liberation. I desire to align to liberation. And like, I'll expand again to the next evolution that I go through. But these wording and these thoughts, you'll start to make them part of your vocabulary all the time. Like instead of focusing on like, I don't want that, you'll start focusing on, okay, I do want that. And when you start to become aware of how much you focus on one vocabulary frequency that's coming through you, or the awareness of it, it's easier to then transition it and allow yourself to upgrade your DNA, your biology, which is what Lion was just speaking about when you were going into the quantum with it. And I feel like that's such a beautiful part of being a human. It's such a beautiful part of seeing how you actually do have a way to transition wherever you're at and create something magnificent, create something you're proud of, create relationships that are extraordinary, find love within yourself and within this world that it's meant to be. Because I know when I was 14 and I had cancer and I was going through these things, I remember in my head, I just wanted to travel the world and fall in love. And I didn't know what that meant then. But since I've traveled all over the world, I've lived in 5 different countries, and I really have learned how to fall in love with myself in the world, but it was probably not the way I thought it was going to be. And I've fallen in love in many other moments throughout that, but how you do that, it's not like a tactical thing to give you. It's just a way of offering and being in this place. And then from there, you receive messages and guides, and yeah, everything evolves from that, I feel like. And I don't know if you have anything to add on that as well.
Sure. I think what you're talking about is what you're experiencing in your life, no matter how beautiful or how tragic it is dictated by the language that you allow to move through your brain. And so you're giving us a tool by saying, the language that we allow to move through our mind, if it's one thread of thinking negativity and I don't want this, then that we're actually putting our attention and energy still towards that thing that we don't want. And so if we can start using, because it's not all body, I mean, we have a mind-body relationship that we're creating, right? We want our mind to be in coherence with our body. Oftentimes our mind is doing something and our body's doing something else. I don't love you, body, and the body wants something, and we're like, no, body, you can't have that. It's like, and so we have this incoherence to our emotional body as well. I'm feeling something, brain goes, no, you can't feel that. Turns off body, no, you can't feel that. And like we do something else with our body to try and avoid the feeling. And so what we're talking about here is using the language center to start choosing how we're talking about our own experience. And many people think that their thoughts are happening to them. And that's actually not the truth. Your thoughts are happening through you, and you can preempt those old thought patterns by realizing, I usually always think this way right now. I can feel a feeling coming on, and I usually will think these thoughts, and then I'll tell myself the truth. But actually, and boom, and I just preempted that old thought pattern, and I've now created my experience of what's going on now. Because the funny thing is about thoughts is that we believe them. We believe what our brain thinks. But the cool thing is that you can choose the thoughts. And the more often you think this new way, what am I saying yes to, instead of what am I saying no to, then my brain starts continually moving more energy in that direction because of the structural shift of how my mind is functioning.
And that goes back to what we were sharing in full circle, like the neurons that are firing in your brain and how to rewire them. And I feel as well, one thing that I did not have this growing up, and definitely not in college or anywhere when first traveling, but I would be in dynamics where I would either be with friends or with men or whatever it was. And I had that thing of my body was like doing something, but my mind was like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And my body looked that way, but I was still doing the thing. And men have done that as well too. Like in their mind, they're like, oh my God, but you're still doing whatever the thing is. And how I and myself have transitioned that is to slow everything down. And I started to understand there was a nervous system, and that our nervous system has a huge part in us acting quickly or fastly and overriding, spiritual bypassing what we're feeling because we don't want to feel it, but we're just going to do it because we feel like we have no other option because it's too late, or we're already in the moment, or there's just, even at a job, there's just something going on. And what shifted that for me is when I started to train my nervous system to slow down, which is breath or thoughts, what Lion was talking about. And I would start to communicate, I feel blah, whatever I was feeling, instead of just going along to do the thing because I didn't know what else to do. And that was also a huge transition in my life with everything. And it's something that it is a practice. However, it's quantumly put my life in another realm once I've started that. And I don't know if you have anything to add for you on that as well.
I'm just going to piggyback on what you're saying every time. So what I hear you describing is the process of self-awareness, and it is slowing down enough not to have a limbic response, because the hindbrain, which is an antiquated part of our psychology, that's just basic like an amoeba, it just wants to protect itself and feel. Right? So it shuts down the cortical, which is logic and reason, and either we attack, defend, shut down, or tend and befriend. These are the basic responses of the limbic system. Those are automated and they take away our choices. And when we have self-awareness, we can witness that that practice is happening. And in that witnessing it, we've actually taken ourselves out of it. So that you're talking about meta self-awareness, really slowing down so the automated response doesn't happen, and observing that feeling is happening. And in that, I have now taken myself out of the mental and emotional process enough. I'm still in it, but I'm able to witness myself. And from that place, I have clarity and I can make choice. And I liken this to an analogy of being in a river. If I'm in a rushing river, tumbling around, and I don't know I'm in the river, I'm very much at the will of the river. So my emotions, if I'm just lost in it, I'm just attacking you and you, and you. But if I go, wow, I actually really want to blame her right now for how I'm feeling. As soon as I did that, I am now actually observing. It's like standing on a rock and looking down at the river and saying, I'm in a river. From that place of expanded perspective, I'm able to now make choices as to how I want to relate to this rush of energy. And I'm no longer reactive. I'm actually taking a moment and acting. I'm making a decision on how I want to respond to what's going on versus allowing the animal to control the biology. To control the mental process, which is biology as well, and just blurting out my old default way of destruction or running away or shut down or self-talk or whatever it is. And I'm able to now make a choice, back to that freedom you were talking about, to what is it that I really want to do now, and how is that going to move me closer? What decision do I want to make now that will move me closer to what I want to be experiencing? What am I saying yes to?
Yeah, and that process didn't happen for me overnight. I feel like it's interesting to talk about. A lot of people, I feel like when they know me or they look at my life, they're like, you just decided to like wake up one day and move to New Zealand, or you decided to be in corporate and move to a new state or a new country, or you just decided to travel here. And there was that moment in time when I did just decide. But every moment when I chose that thing of I'm deciding this, I'm choosing this, there was a whole process that got me to that decision. It was never like that just happened overnight. And I feel like that is something that can be misleading in personal development or spiritual or business or whatever world you want to play in or talk about. People can make it seem like something happened overnight or make it seem like that there was just this moment. Yes, there's always a moment in time where decision and choice was made. There's a whole story in your life that goes to that. And I would encourage anyone listening to this is start to look at your life story, like start to write things down in your life of what has gone on. What are the things you really liked? What were the things you maybe didn't like? And from that, how can you start just making one small habit, one small decision, one small choice into getting more into the area of hell yes, like into that moment. And that will lead you to your life where that decision happens for you. And you're like, whoa, like I just made that decision and that just created this. And it is magical, but it's not really. And it's something that you make a habit of, you make a practice of, and it's a beautiful thing. And I think that's most of what has gotten me where I am. And that's what I live my life by now, is a huge value system or a huge compass that I exist in all the time. It's not like people you see, even great leaders of any type you want to look at, I guess, whatever industry or what they stand for. There wasn't just a moment. There was a bunch of moments that added up, compounded from a decision because they started to do some type of this practice somewhere in their life, depending on what they wanted to feel and experience the rest of their life. So it's getting clear on that and then looking like reverse engineering it, but it's not so much the doing as it is just the feeling to get there in a way that doesn't really make logical sense.
Yeah, I think non-linear for sure. The ego mind can get focused on the objective, and it can end up creating this moment by moment experience that is suffering in its attempts to attain its goals. And so what I hear you talking about is becoming process oriented and focusing on making a decision in every single moment to add up to what the life is that you want to be experiencing. And that decision can be made at any moment. So if you look back at your life story and you feel like it's been shit, or it's not exactly what you have desired, and you as mediocre, or you just know there's more to what you can experience. I know I have a bigger potential. You can turn the page and write a new chapter like now. You just have to make that decision. And these decisions that we make and the experiences that we have, like you said, it's not all of a sudden, boom, I flipped and I'm this new person. Each one is a rite of passage that gives you the skills you need to handle the next phase. We didn't get to where we are right now without having to learn all of this stuff before that. And so people are on their baby steps now, I would say, what they want to do is feel the thread of inspiration. Really feel like that desire, which we often poo-poo desire, like, no, desire is bad. Like, spiritual, don't have desire. No, desire is one of the first powers of God. Nothing has happened in the known universe without desire first. You were not born without desire. Your parents had to desire each other. Every single achievement that has ever happened is because that person desired to achieve something. Every technological advancement, I desire to create. Everything happened from desire. And so that is our first impetus. And it's an energy frequency. It's not a thought pattern. You have to feel within yourself, I want something different. What does that feel like? Because when you attach to that energy as a powerful temptation, it becomes what supports you through to gather new information, which is why you're probably watching this call with us right now. And I think for people who are watching, if you watched it this far in, now we're over 45 minutes in. If you've been watching it for this long, it's because you know you want to be experiencing something different. And you're looking for information, and you can't just information gather. You've got to take that information, and you've got to, from someone, a new source actually, it's important. Where are you getting that information from? Because if you're getting it from old sources, from your friends who maybe not have done their work yet, you're still going to be in that old thread and vein. Take that new information and put it into real, tangible action. So if you're inspired right now by what you're hearing from us, I recommend that you feel that inspiration. You start to learn more, a little bit more about the pathway that you can take, and then have somebody take you through the steps, guide you through actually living in a new way so you can start to feel it, understand it in yourself palpably, because that's the best teacher. Just listening to talks and writing or taking workshops or talking to a therapist, it's not the same as actually living in a new way. And so I recommend you get a hold of Colleen or myself if you want to explore that. Do you want to give us information about your website or how people can get a hold of you if they want to talk to you?
Yeah, so I mean, if you go to Google, it's a great place. There's a lot on me there. I have my third book coming out later this year, but I have 2 books that you can get on Amazon, as well as a guidance deck if you wanted something just to be open to this work. And then if you go to my website, www.colleengallagher.co, I have tons of online programs I'm always offering. One thing I wanted to share before we close out really quick, and I think it's important both of us share. I'd love to hear yours. You can go first, but what is your inspiration, or what's been your guidance of inspiration on this journey for you? And how do you keep that going?
Obviously freedom was the core of that. It could be a lineage, other lifetimes, but I'd say right now, what is
freedom though to you? Describe that first.
For me, freedom is being able to express yourself fully. It really is having the freedom to express who you are and create in a creative way. And the reason why I do my work now is because I like to play at a high level. So I want to be able to express, as long as I'm not overstepping any physical boundaries with another person, and their personal space boundaries, their property boundaries, I want to be able to express myself with another person consensually, however we want to. And I have found a lot of oppression from the old Ubud community that I moved into. And it really stirred me to say, you know what, like, this is not right. It's just like the LGBT movement or women's rights. It's like, you can't tell somebody they can't express themselves honestly and with somebody else consensually, and that they're gossip and like shame them and all of this shit going on. And I became very passionate. I need to teach people about how to stop projecting their ideas about what's right and wrong for other people. The only thing we need to really listen to is your physical boundaries and your property boundaries. Everything else, they have the right to express themselves fully. And I haven't really felt that freedom. And when I was here, this is about 5 years ago. And I've always been working with people for 22 years. I've been a teacher and a mentor in some way, but I have changed the flavor to empowering people to express their fullness. And I see that people are oppressing other free people because they're not free to express themselves. And so I see that across the board. It's like, it's creating toxicity in our relationships. Men are not free to express who they are because they get shamed. Toxic masculinity, you're a sexual predator. That's saying that a predator means that you're going to kill somebody. That's what we, in animal kingdom, a predator was killing another animal. And so we've created this analogy for men expressing their interest that is making them feel like they can't. Creates toxicity in their sexual expression. And then it creates all this trauma. The way they express is really toxic. And then women further need to express their pain in a way that's shaming men. And it creates a cycle. And what I really wanted was to be able to express myself fully in a way that's in integrity and beautiful and creative and altruistic and in love and passion without feeling oppressed. And so I realized what was stopping it was societally, people needed to learn a little bit more about ownership over their own emotions and not projecting, as well as teaching people how to live empowered and in a way that is also caring for others, emotionally intelligent, and how you can show up in your communities and in your personal relationships and for yourself in a way that is empowered, that if anybody knew really what you were doing, they would celebrate you and who you are as an individual. And what that would do is you're only as strong and you're only as free as your playmates are. It's just, if you want to be really free and you're in a society that's not free, you've got to leave that society. And so I don't want to leave society, and so I need society to level up so that I can play with my playmates at a high level. I want to be able to meet you and be in love and us to just feel each other and hold each other. And it's not a big deal. And it's not like you have to fear that I'm going to rape you or something. I mean, this sucks. I hate this, that 1 out of 7 women have been sexually assaulted. And every time I have an intimate exploration, I have to assume, I have to walk on eggshells, assume that you're carrying a trauma. And I hate that. And so my passion is really, it's altruistic and it's also self-serving. I want to be able to be fully free and play at a high level with society. And for that to happen, we've got to up-level society.
Totally. And one thing that I love that you shared, and I think it's important for anyone listening, is Lion didn't just go out there and do this, and it's similar to my story, because he wanted to fix people with this. He did it really because he wanted to experience something different himself. And if you ever start doing something just for other people, you're going to lose motivation. You're going to lose traction. You're going to lose inspiration. You're going to lose it because it was never really, it was still a codependent looping. I needed something from other people to feel a fulfillment instead of going, there's just something so deep inside of me. There's just something so it needs to be expressed. It needs to be out there. And that was the initiation, rites of passage, however you're listening, you want to call it, into the creation of whatever it was, for that to have that up level and for you to keep that drive and keep that inspiration moving. So I love that you said that. And then, let people know too where to reach you after that beautiful experience or expression of you.
Yeah, thank you. I'd love to hear what's driving you. Why are you doing this?
Yeah. So, well, there's a couple of reasons, but I feel like the first one is I really started out and I wanted to fall in love. I really, honestly, what Lion said, I wanted to know what was the depths of the capacity to feel love, and what would that feel like to be like lost in this world, but also found. And like, it was just this very beautiful merging that I had to experience. Like, I remember looking at my corporate job, I was like making great money, over 6 figures. I thought it was so great then, but like, it was a lot of money at that time. And I was like, there just has to be more. Like, this money isn't bringing love. Like, it's not this thing that I know it's capable to feel. And that was always the feeling that brought me to courage to go do the thing, whatever that it was, or feel the thing. And all my programs, really, it's interesting. I never really did it on purpose, but it always is how to fall in love after heartbreak, and how to really understand through your heartbreak, that's the greatest gift for you to be open, and the greatest gift for you to feel and experience and trust and surrender, like all these things that I could never have imagined when I was like, I just want to fall in love. Like, no way, that was never like all those things. But from that kind of self-serving, also, I believe that God put that desire in me for a reason, for a purpose, for something greater. That is what drives me to get out of bed. That's what excites me to like see that moment where you connect with someone in their eyes, and see that moment where it's like they're like a baby for the first time, like realizing, whoa, like I'm safe to experience this, and I can just go in this place together on this journey. And falling in love doesn't have to be necessarily like this relationship thing. It can be with your clients. It can be with the way you drink tea. There's a lot of ways that you can feel it, but I didn't start out with that in mind. But from that, it's just been a beautiful journey. And that's what excites me, and that thing in someone's eyes, that moment of breath, that moment of something unexplainable. You just can't put the words to it. Like, that's why I do the work. That's why I get excited. That's why I am motivated, I guess, with business, or that's why I'm motivated with a PhD that I really don't care about the institution, but there's things for my mission that I feel like God has asked me to receive or do for certain conversations and certain rooms I want to be in, to shift things and let society go up. And when you live your life in that way, you kind of get asked, or you feel like there's things that are responsibility wise put on you, but you do it in a way because you want to experience love deeper, and you're going to put yourself in new environments and challenging environments where maybe the love isn't just going to be right there. You're the initiator, you're the leader of it, and learning that place, I guess. That's why I do it, and that's what excites me, and that's why I just keep doing it and showing up. It's like you just, like air, you just do it because it's like just there. It's a natural habit you have. So yeah, and then let everyone know too where to find you.
Thanks for sharing that. Before I let them know, I think what you're talking about is altruistic narcissism. And this is a balance of like focusing on, I need to get my needs met. And I also care about you and what you're experiencing. And I want to help you as well. And I value you and your needs matter. And so when we mold those two things together, we see an empowered individual who is making a change in their own life and in the lives of others. And so that's a large part of my work with people, is teaching them how to have altruistic narcissism. And you can find me obviously by my name. Just search for me, Lion Galban, on the web. You can find me on whatever, Twitter, Instagram, my website, it's all there. And I really enjoy talking with you. And yeah, you just are a gorgeous, amazing human being.
Thanks. I'm super grateful to be here together and co-creating it. And for anyone listening, if you guys had questions in the comments, we can answer it, or always feel free to reach out to us.
Yeah, we'll answer later on. We've been looking on the Zoom call, but we'll get back to you guys later on. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Bye.